Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Shorty September, a September BookTube event dedicated to shorter books, books that are fewer than 200 pages, fewer than 100 pages, right around that sweet spot of 120 to 150 pages, maybe. The shorter things that I don't know if you're like me, that are these little bits and pieces in between the bigger books on almost every shelf. And that maybe get overlooked because of that. Maybe they do. I have had emails from people last Shorty September and this year saying, well, this is a little confusing since on your channel I have seen enormous books, and unlike the Dude Bro channels, you don't love them just because they're enormous and you've actually read them. This is true. I absolutely love an enormous book. A book that is well over 800 pages will give me the experience of being lost in a book, which all of you have had that experience, and that experience feels wonderful. It's not the same thing as enjoying a book. It's difficult to quantify, probably worth a Steve Reads essay, but being lost in a book is when you have traded your walking around world for the world of that book, and that can only happen with a duration of time spent with that book. I don't believe it's possible in quite that way to get lost in a book that you're in one end and out the other right away. I think you need to spend time. It's a product of spending time with a book. And as a result of that, it's largely gated off from me. I'm a very fast reader and I read all the time. So I need a very long book to get that feeling, to get the feeling of being lost in a book. I do get it regularly. Thanks to the publishing industry, I do get it. But it's not as common as it is with most readers. And a lot of you know that and have been therefore a little confused of why I would love short books so much. Short books, they have a sting in the tail of their own. They are amazing in their own right. I don't ever get lost in them, but I'm not ever quite so incipiently attacked by longer books. Virtually never. That virtually never happens. So I've got another short book to talk about today. I'm going to try to do a Shorty September every day in September, and the one I have today will probably need no introduction. It's Beowulf, and it's not just Beowulf, it's this old iconic Mentor mass market paperback of the Burton Raffel translation of Beowulf. 100 pages, one sitting to read Beowulf. This thing that is talked about all the time, referenced all the time. If you've only heard about it and heard about it and heard about it and never read it, well, it doesn't take much effort or work, much time to read it. And I have not read this translation of Beowulf in a long time. This is from 60 years ago. And it came out as a Mentor Mentor mass market paperback with this iconic blockish stained glass cover, and took off like a bottle rocket. It sold mountains of copies. Mountains. I don't know exact numbers, but I would find it difficult to believe that the 1960s saw many mass market paperbacks that sold better than this. Not only because of general interest, because this was what, $2? Yeah, $1.95 on every spinner rack and bookstore rack in the world, in the English-speaking world, but also because this was adopted almost immediately by schools as the paperback of Beowulf to assign in classes. I have no idea. I don't know that we could even estimate how many hundreds of thousands of students were assigned this book over decades, this translation of Beowulf. And maybe even liked it, because we'll get into the merits of the translation, but the story itself is terrific. In any translation, the story itself is terrific. So who knows how many readers were plucked from the downward slide and put on the path of reading more books because of this. This is, of course, the famous story of a world-famous superhuman warrior named Beowulf. He is valorous, he is handy with a sword and shield, he is a beloved leader of his men, but it's important to remember, he himself is also superhuman. He's super strong, he doesn't need to breathe, he can be defeated, and of course he can grow old. but he is built biologically to fight monsters. It's not stressed by the poet, but it's unavoidable in the poem that he's not a normal person. That he shares almost a kinship with the monsters that he kills. And he has heard rumors about a hall in a neighboring kingdom that is haunted by a monster that comes regularly and takes off men. Just takes men and eats them. They're never seen again. Or destroys them, rips them apart in the hall. And Beowulf has come to rid this hall of this monster. This monster's name is Grendel. And he does. He rips the monster's arm off. And it goes fleeing into the fenlands where it is. Its piteous cries are a pretty good indication that that wound is mortal. But it doesn't stop there. That's not the whole story. That Penguin Classics has carved off just that part of the poem as an individual tiny little book many times. But that's not the whole story. Grendel has a mother. And the mother is every bit a monster as he is, and Beowulf has to fight and kill her. And then a long time passes. We don't have any idea. We don't have any idea how many monsters Beowulf kills in that time. He becomes king in his own right. And then we see him much later in life fighting a dragon. As an old man, as an old king, with help from a squire. Very, very, a very good echo of Hercules. And that's thrilling. There are no boring bits to this poem. It's three major adventures with one hero fighting three monsters. So that first year in high school, that second year in high school, that is so brutal on American boys, where in that first and second year of high school, American boys are told by other American boys in no uncertain terms that they must not read for pleasure, that reading is gay, that reading is for girls, all those horrible things that they will deny up and down that they have been told, that they have definitely been told. This can stop that. Books like this can stop that. And who knows how many times it did. This sold like crazy. Burton Raffel went on to translate a whole bunch of other things, but this sold like crazy. For a brief time, I taught Beowulf, and when I taught Beowulf, this is the text that I used, because Beowulf is the original Beowulf. First of all, it's a miracle that it reached us at all. It's a miracle that it survived to be read by us. It's a miracle that we even know that it ever existed, let alone that we can read even part of it. One manuscript survived. We don't have any idea how accurate that manuscript was to any kind of an text or an original. We don't have any idea how many mistakes were made, whether or not the writer of that manuscript abridged the story that he was copying. My guess would be that he did. Beowulf, the poem, when you read it, just not knowing anything about its provenance at all, very much seems like a jumbled together collection of fragments of a much longer work. Whether or not that's true, we have no idea. We have no idea of the accuracy of that original manuscript. And that original manuscript was then copied over a couple of times with mistakes. And all the other copies of this thing and all of its other variations and all of its other lengths, all gone. One copy. One thing, single little thread of survival to reach us. And that original copy was in Old English. So unlike, for instance, Chaucer, where if you're presented with Chaucer's English on the page, it's going to slap you around a bit at first. But after a couple of days, it's not. After a couple of days, after a week, after 2 weeks, you'll be able to read it without any glosses, without any notes at all. It's very easy. Chaucer is a wonderful poet. He is a great poet. He is a greater poet than whoever the poet was here, although this poet is pretty damn good. Chaucer is such a great poet that, by and large, the weird, stickling words in his English will yield themselves to contextual reading. You don't even really need glosses for Chaucer if you spend time with him, if you pay attention and care. There's no way to do that with Beowulf. Presented with a text of the original of Beowulf, you wouldn't know what you were looking at, and there would be no purchase for you to ever know that. You would need to be instructed in Beowulf, in the English of Beowulf. So it has needed translations. I in the past, I mean, I've taught the Canterbury Tales a lot more than I've taught Beowulf, and when I teach the Canterbury Tales, I used to always tell my students, you don't technically need a translation for this work. We'll use one. We'll use Neville Coghill. But you don't technically need one, and I'll show you as we go along why you don't. It's not me saying that. It's not just me saying that. You'll see that you don't really. But with Beowulf, you do. You do need a translation. And for, I don't even know, 6 decades, 5 decades, the Burton Raffel Beowulf was the translation. There were others that were more scholarly. There were others that were bilingual, for instance. But this was the one that everybody read. This is the one that people picked up, even without school. Just, here's an ancient bit of fantasy that is extremely reminiscent of the modern fantasy that I read. So why not read it? And Burton Raffel makes that very easy. That was the key, I think the key to the success of this book is that it's an easy translation. It's not bad at all, but it's easy. The original rhythm of the original poem of Beowulf isn't quite so intuitive. It isn't quite as easy. You can get used to it, but it's not quite as easy. And Raffel knows that. He knew that perfectly well when he did this, and largely eliminates those original rhythms in favor of a more standard modern English verse epic. I myself believe that he doesn't do a whole lot of violence to the poem of Beowulf to do that. And boy, oh boy, for the little amount of violence that he does, do you get payoff, because you can read this. No matter where you stand on the spectrum of understanding or caring about Old English or ancient English literature, you can read this and enjoy it as a reading experience on its own 2 feet, without any scholarly apparatus at all. And that's pretty amazing. I like I said, I'm sure that was the reason why this was the go-to text for schools. The Old English of Beowulf does certain things. It moves in certain ways. It sounds in certain ways. This originally was written to be sung or said, not to be read. And it turned out, I don't want to speak ill of Burton Raffel, because this is terrific. But it turned out that it was possible to make an incredibly readable translation of Beowulf that's a whole hell of a lot closer to what the Old English is doing. Seamus Heaney did that. The great Irish poet Seamus Heaney did that. And if anything, his translation of Beowulf sold even more than this did. And is probably still selling. This, I'm sure, is still in print. But I'm sure now that if you were, for instance, an introductory English literature or overview of fantasy literature teacher in a college, and you knew that you were going to assign Beowulf, not only because it's foundational, but also because it's short so your students will read it, you wouldn't pick this anymore. For decades, you would have picked this. You would have had largely only this to pick. But for decades, you would have picked this, but you wouldn't anymore. You would pick the Seamus Heaney now. And that would probably be a better pick. Probably. Burton Raffel is a really, really good translator. He was a first-rate scholar, but he wasn't a poet of any merit whatsoever, whereas Seamus Heaney is not only a poet, but a great poet. And also an adept at translation. How many times in any generation are you going to get those things to combine? There's no ill will meant towards Burton Raffel at all to say that if the stars align so that a great poet does a great job translating a great poem, probably it's going to supersede your own translation. Nevertheless, I didn't choose Seamus Heaney's for this. I chose this. 100 pages, and I want to read you a bit of what I'm talking about. I don't know how clear it will be without other translations in the video and also without the original. But we'll give it a try, and maybe you can spot it. This is Beowulf fighting Grendel's mother, starting to. And this will at least tell you whether or not you would like the Burton Raffel translation, although you will. You will like it. It is made to be accessible. That's its number one quality. Let's see here. He leaped into the lake, would not wait for anyone's answer. The heaving water covered him over. Now see, would not wait for anyone's answer is down below. The heaving waters covered him over is down below. So you're getting a little bit of something that is absolutely rife in the original. But it reads a little awkwardly in English, even when someone's taking the care that Burton Raffel is. For hours he sank through the waves. See? So he doesn't need to breathe. The writers and the listeners of this poem might not have known anatomy when they were sitting in their mead halls hearing the harper do this. But they knew perfectly well they couldn't hold their breath for hours. And they knew what would happen if they took a breath while they were underwater. For hours he sank through the waves. At last he saw the mud of the bottom. And all at once the greedy she-wolf, that's Grendel's mother, who'd ruled those waters for 100 years, discovered him, saw that a creature from above had come to explore the bottom of her wet world. She welcomed him in her claws, clutched at him savagely, but could not harm him, tried to work her fingers through the tight ring-woven mail on his breast, but tore and scratched in vain. Then she carried him, armor and sword and all, to her home. He struggled to free his weapon and failed. The fight brought other monsters swimming to see her catch, a host of sea beasts who beat at his mail shirt, stabbing with tusks and teeth as they followed along. Then he realized suddenly that she'd brought him into someone's battle hall, and there the water's heat could not hurt him, nor anything in the lake attack him through the building's high-arched roof. A brilliant light burned all around him. The lake itself was like a fiery flame. Then he saw the mighty water witch and swung his sword, his ring-marked blade, straight at her head. You see, there's filling going on here. I don't know if you probably can sense that. There's filling going on here as Burton Raffel tries to maintain a certain kind of scansion of his own. The iron sang its fierce song, sang Beowulf's great strength. But her guest discovered that no sword could slice her evil skin, that Hrunting could not hurt her, was useless now when he needed it. They wrestled. She ripped and tore and clawed at him, bit holes in his helmet, and that too failed him. For the first time in years of being worn to war, it would earn no glory. It was the last time anyone would wear it. But Beowulf longed only for fame, leaped back into battle. He tossed his sword aside, angry. The steel-edged blade lay where he dropped it. If the weapons were useless, he'd use his hands, the strength in his fingers. So comes to men who mean it, to win the care about nothing else. He raised his arms and seized her by the shoulder. Anger doubled his strength. He threw her to the floor. She fell, Grendel's fierce mother. So, in terms of the poem, we once again see the same pattern is repeating. Beowulf decides when he's facing Grendel that the best weapon that he has is the supernatural strength of his own arms. And the same thing with Grendel's mother. He can't hurt her with his weapons. But he doesn't give up. He decides to kill her with his super strength. And you can see from that passage that you don't want to stop reading. One of the keys of the original oral recitation of this poem was that the lines seamlessly blend into each other, next to next, seamlessly, so that you can't really stop. You're not supposed to want to stop. The lines aren't supposed to invite that, except in the breaks between parts, and we don't know how natural those are. We don't know how natural they are to the original. I think that there is an attractively human element of that if you were the person whose job it was to sing this to a hall full of people who are stuffed full of food and tanked to the gills, that you'd want a rhetorical form that would be hard to interrupt, that would be hard to stop. You're just going to keep tripping along. And regardless of what other liberties Burton Raffel takes with the original metrics of this poem, he captures that element. You don't ever want to stop reading these adventures. So that is our Shorty September for today. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's the Epic of Beowulf, but specifically the Burton Raffel version of the Epic of Beowulf. I wonder how many of you have read this exact volume. I wonder how many of you encountered Beowulf for the first time here. And maybe a lot of you went on to encounter it again with Seamus Heaney. Quite a few of my critical brethren, when Seamus Heaney's translation was bursting all over the English-speaking world, reported that own journey, that exact same journey, that they didn't know anything about Beowulf, or maybe they read a kid's version, a comic book version, just the fight between him and Grendel, nothing else. And then they read the Burton Raffel and really liked it, and it became their Beowulf. And then they read the Seamus Heaney and realized, oh, okay, there's quite a bit more that you can do with this without making it alienating. And I wonder how many of you have had that same journey. But anyway, we went a little epic for Shorty September this time around, just to remind you that the Epic of Beowulf is one of many, many works of the canon that are short, that would work for this month. So that's it for today. We will move on to something probably very different for tomorrow. I'm not trying to guide these at all. I just have a stack of short books. So whatever's next on the stack, we'll talk about tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.